Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Empire of the Suns.
The Empire of the Suns podcast is brought to you by Sonic. Drive to your nearest Sonic location and don't forget to order your half-price drink or slush anytime in the Sonic app.
Hello there and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellen Olson, joined as always by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up, man?
I'm doing well. How are you? So we're definitely not going to use this podcast time to talk about whatever the terrible arguments on X are today and yesterday, and just not a fun place to be. So we're going to talk about draft stuff, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, a quick 60-second recap for the state of the team, just so we kind of go there. It's been more or less the same thing. Great blowout, 40-point win over the Raptors. Raptors depleted, tanking, not playing anyone, but it was a good win. For the Suns, who are now 32-37, a recent youth movement, which we have called for on this podcast plenty of times. We spent a good amount of time. I believe we podcasted right before the Clippers win. That was the last time we podcasted. But you and I, both on our airwaves in the written form, Twitter, whatever, called for this youth movement a while ago, looked for Gillespie to start, that kind of stuff. They're eventually getting there right now. The big development to happen, maybe since we last podcast, I'm not exactly sure. Kyrie Irving out for the year. Dallas still without Gafford, Lively, and Anthony Davis. They've got PJ Washington back. They've got some bodies back. So all of a sudden, Kyrie's injury made it possible for the Suns to make the postseason still. Dallas is 33-36 as we record this on a Wednesday afternoon. Phoenix 32-37. Portland 30-39. Fox out for the year for the Spurs, so the Spurs are done. Portland still maybe where I'm a week or two away still from ruling out Portland, probably 2 weeks. I need another 2 weeks. Dallas, we'll see. It's 33 wins for Dallas with 13 games to go. Can they get to 37 or 38? If they get to 37 or 38, I think they'll be good. But we'll see. There's not really much to talk about on that front. I think we'll break it down a little bit more definitively in the next week or two. We had some stuff going on behind the scenes for the last couple of weeks. For those of you that were itching to hear us talk about the same stuff, we're not going to do that. And we're going to have some different types of conversations here. Is there anything that you weren't tweeting about or talking about on the radio that you want to talk about within the last week or two of Suns basketball on the court? It's cool to see Oso and Ryan, and it was cool to see Cody Martin play well, but conversations we can have at another time.
Yeah, I think it's just the general, those guys are energy bringers. They provide energy, and, if you're a star in this league, you need those guys around you, and they finally found those guys. And I think even Gillespie, that kind of stuff is important to this team at this point because, again, it's about effort right now. It's about consistency and just people. If you listen to Devin Booker interviews, I think you'll notice just a lot of those guys have high basketball IQs. They play hard. That's what he's liking out of it. And I think that's kind of the general obvious takeaway there.
All right, so we're going to be March Madness themed the rest of the episode. So if you're not really into draft stuff, I recommend you hang around for at least the first couple minutes of our conversation because we're going to get into some front office happenings that are emerging or have emerged in the last couple of months, things people are expecting. I'll word it that way. And then we're going to do Cats Talk at the very end because we haven't done it in 2 months probably, and they're about to play in the tourney, and we always like to check in with our Wildcat brethren. Not really, to be honest. It's just Kevin and Kellen want to talk about the Wildcats, and if you're listening at the end, we're just being selfish with our own recorded time. Okay, I wrote a story just looking at it was sort of giving myself an excuse and giving myself a reason to catch up on draft stuff because we talked about it last year, we talked about the year before. It continues to be very important for the Suns to nail the draft in ways that it is not for many other teams in the league because of what they can't do, second apron stuff, yada, yada. We talked about that in the past, but this time, Kevin Durant's getting traded this summer. What's the return? We don't really know. You don't really have any building blocks on your team right now outside of Devin Booker, and that's it. Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro, are they rotation players? Are they starters? Are they in the league in 5 years? I don't know where exactly they land so far. If I had to, I'd be optimistic if you asked me right now, but I don't know. So the draft continues to be very important, and we can talk about specific guys in a minute if you want to. If there's anyone you want to shout out to the listeners to watch for in March Madness, I'll have a couple of names, I guess. But my main overarching thing, and something I didn't get to in the story, is there are rumblings. There are anticipatory rumblings, I'll word them as speculation that is anticipating that the front office could see a shakeup because we followed sports for a long time. Whenever a team massively underachieves, the coach gets fired, and then maybe the general manager gets fired too. That's James Jones. But the difficult part of this conversation, as it was in the previous ownership era, to be completely honest, is diagnosing the GM and how much of this was his decision. Like there's still, I haven't heard someone definitively report yet who picked DeAndre Ayton. Like I still don't know. We've heard that so-and-so wanted this and so-and-so wanted that, but like, okay, wanted, but like who made the decision? Who was it ultimately on? You can say it was Sarver, but was that because McDonough wanted Ayton? Like we don't know. So like evaluating like Ryan McDonough, even evaluating Batby, it's like you can't really be sure who's deciding what. And that's where this conversation gets difficult, Kevin, because what we do know and what was reported was that the Suns were not lenient, excuse me, they were hesitant about trading for Kevin Durant and giving up everything that the Nets wanted. Matt Ishbia comes in, 48 hours later, they have Kevin Durant. So there's certain things we talked about at the time on the podcast and since where we have a pretty good understanding of how the front office works. It's a collaborative space. It is a space where ideas are, I don't know how to phrase it correctly because again, like I'm not speaking out of reporting or like being in the room or knowing those kinds of dynamics, but just based on the way Ishbia explains it and other people explain it, like he is not out there watching. He's
Right,
not out there
and
watching.
also Iguodaro,
Yeah, he's not watching Yaxel Lendeborg tape out of UAB. You know what I mean? But like the scouts or like Jones will be like, "Hey, we like this guy in the draft," and then it'll be part of the conversation or whatever, and go from there. But ultimately, what we can assume is that he has final say so, for sure, and that's the case for a lot of owners. It's not a unique thing here per se, but it's a type of difficult thing, Kevin, where okay, if you're getting rid of James Jones, what exactly are you changing by getting rid of him? And what I would not recommend changing is the guy who's actually pretty good at drafting. Did you know that? Like James Jones is actually good at drafting. 2019, trades down, gets Cam Johnson, a terrible reach that I criticized heavily at the time. Shout out Cole Zwicker, who works for the Rockets right now, by the way. Cole and his buddies, they're kind of killing it. Look at those Rockets. Look at the way they're growing, developing. They just hired all those Stepien dudes, and away they go. Cole and I were dumbfounded by the pick. Thought it was way too high. Thought there were issues with Cam, and James and his team got a big time win there. Made a lot of us, including myself, look like an idiot. Took this guy named Ty Jerome who's going to be here on Friday. Took him a couple of years, 5, but he's a very good NBA player. 2020, he could have picked anyone except Jalen Smith, and it would have been it would just like it's actually funny how much it would make a difference just to take someone other than Jalen Smith. Like I think him and Kyra Lewis are like the only guys who aren't NBA players or like are right on the fringe of it. Stick's got a lot of money. He hasn't really done too much for Chicago this year. And then of course the big one, Toumani Camara in 23. That's the type of pick that'll like not save your job, but like you can really use as a resume booster. And then this past year, like Donan Iguodaro was good work. It looks solid right now in terms of the value. So you should probably keep that guy when the draft's important, Kevin, but I don't think they're going to keep that guy.
It's funny because, like, of all the things that we do or do not know about James Jones's job, probably, drafting, I think, is his. I don't think Bartelstein or Ishbia are, like, overriding him for draft picks, right? I don't think they're like, go draft Bronny, like, they would have said, go draft Bronny James so LeBron comes here, that kind of stuff, but, like, I think he's actually, that's the one thing I feel confident saying he's probably actually in charge of because that's too in the weeds. Like, I don't know if he made the Beal deal. I don't know if he did the intricacies of that or was for that or whatever or pushed back. No idea. But we're talking draft. It's pretty much his baby, I'm sure. And that's where we see these themes of good players who have one definable NBA skill. He's very good at that. Even Sticks, like, dude rebounds like mad. He has other problems, but he identified that one skill and they just thought he could do a lot more than he has been able to.
They thought he
So,
could shoot. They thought
yeah.
stretch big who plays super hard, this is easy,
Yeah.
which made sense, but didn't work out.
Yeah. And that wasn't even that wild of a stretch compared to like Cam Johnson. So, to me, like if he's a fall guy, I don't know. So, I do think when we approach this conversation we're going to have in a second about who's available, what the Suns are looking for, we're going off of I think we should go off James Jones guys because he probably should still be around. We agree. So like should. That doesn't mean he will. But also I think next step in this is okay. How do you even draft with a team you don't know what it's going to look like, right? Like if Katie's gone, let's just assume are we approaching this draft with Devin Booker pivot and reload as the Matt Ishbia quote was, or does it even matter? Because at this point, it's like you got to just get good rotation players.
So for me, I wanted to spring this conversation because I actually think that the Suns need the opposite of James Jones players.
Okay.
So like Alex Caravan out of UConn is like a 10 out of 10 on the James Jones scale. It's disgusting how much of a James Jones player he is. Then again, this is what I said about Tyrese Halliburton, and then they didn't pick Tyrese Halliburton. Now, I think there was some funny business there and some things going on. I spoke with the man himself, tried to get some clarity, but again, that's in the if there's like a moment, whenever the moment is and I'm done covering the Suns, I just would love to like talk to Ishbia or someone and just be like, can I just get or James or whoever, like McDonough, those people, and can I just get 3 answers? Won't tell anyone. Like my curiosity after covering this team. I just want to know. That would be one for sure. But I think they actually kind of need the opposite because as we saw during the Toronto game, it was not so much how they looked without Kevin Durant as like an indictment of like what hasn't worked this year. It's not what it was. It's not what I'm saying what it was. I'm saying it offered a glimpse into what next year could potentially be.
Yeah.
If you get a bunch of guys who play super duper hard, who are athletic and run up and down the floor, and play the style that Devin Booker wants to play and that he has said he has wanted to play. He wants to play fast. He wants to have pace and spacing, especially in the half court. And that was something where playing with Oso specifically was a huge boost for them. So I think if you look at their roster right now, if they take someone below 6'8", no, don't do that. Just take a bigger wing, take someone with size, and get guys who are super athletic. So I look on the wing, and the guy that I'm going to be talking about a lot, probably like a whole lot, is here. Brace with me. Ready for my Frank Ntilikina moment? You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Ado Teero. Ado Teero. Thiero.
Arkansas, right?
Ado Thiero. Super athletic, most versatile defensive player in the class by all accounts. I don't know if he does basketball stuff, but he's like just everywhere and plays super duper hard. And I think that's all I would have 2 boxes. Like, how athletic are you and do you play hard? And if you check both those boxes, you should be in a Suns uniform next year. Will Riley out of Illinois is another one where he's got like scoring traits and stuff, but when I watch him, he just plays really hard and he's quick and like 6'8" and has a ton of room left to grow into his body, which you hope is a thing where he gets out of being like the wiry kind of guy that he is, because he's like listed 180. He's not 180. Of course, Carter Bryant out of Arizona comes up. And then there's some bigs as well who qualify under sort of the same thing where like Danny Wolf out of Michigan might be a James Jones guy just because, again, how skilled he is with the ball and the 1 or 2 things he does very, very well. But like, I don't know if he can like defend anyone. And I don't know if he can like get by anyone. He even struggles to get by guys at the collegiate level pretty consistently. I'm curious to see them play UC San Diego because they're a team that forces a lot of turnovers. And with him at point center, having a team like that all over him, I'm curious to see that. But yeah, I think it's just that juxtaposition that I was really fascinated by that I wanted to talk about today. That was my main thing because like I think I would assume if we were to sit here and guess, I would assume he's gone. I don't think it's fair. I think that he's done like a solid job. Again, like people can say like he has to go. He's the one who built this roster. It's like I don't know if he did, but again, to your point, what we do know is for the most part he's been the draft guy and he's crushed it. But I don't think that they need the types of player. They need the type of players that he typically targets. Like I think you need to go. You need to swing big. You know, like remember when like Anthony Simons came out. Mm-hmm. It was like he was at this like academy thing. Like he does all these things, but when you watch tape of him, it was like it wasn't even real tape. It was just like him in some gym. Like it wasn't real like basketball. It felt like. So it's like you're just taking this idea of a guy. And it's like I take those guys. They need those guys.
I think there's a meeting in the middle. I mean, whoever's the GM, I think you're right on the wing situation because look, at the end of the day, not that you're trying to copy, because trying to copy people always goes badly. It's like, were the Thunder copying everyone and how they've built out their roster? No, I guess you could say the Rockets are kind of copying them. But like to your point about how they should play, it's like pace and length and athletes and having like you add the mix of good IQ into that ideally. And that's why like I'll stick to guys I know like Carter Bryant from Arizona. I don't know if he'd be around at the end of the first round because like as little production as he's had this year, what is he like 6 points per game? He's playing 19 minutes, but you watch him, he's smart, he's cool, collected, he does the right things, he knows how to make plays, he can shoot a little bit. It looks super mechanical, but it goes in. And he's like not just a big wing, but like he's a freshman and he's already looks bulky. So just he's a good example of like if the Suns had a chance at him, I do it. That's your future type of power forward who complements everyone, defends really, really well, just eats up blocks just because people don't think that he's going to jump and he does. I would say though, like this is a James Jones guy that you also wrote about is a Cam Jones from Marquette who he does everything. He's not really a traditional point guard, but if you do need a point guard and you have Devin Booker, he has size. Like he's the type that I would say, okay, then you break the wing rule for him.
I like Cam Jones a lot. He's very high for me in terms of the guys that I'm watching, and I'm going to be pissed if Marquette loses early or gets upset because I want to watch him play a couple of games. Like the last point on this is just look at the standings right now and think about athleticism, length, and size. Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Boston, the Knicks, the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Grizzlies, and then the first team I get to where I have some pause is the Warriors. But after them, it's the Timberwolves, the Pacers, the Clippers, like all of these teams, Milwaukee, Detroit. Like it's like, and that's every team that's like right around that's definitively above 500. None of those teams you look at like the Suns where you're like, I don't know if they have like enough, like they don't have size either on the wing or they make up for the lack of size by just like Houston, for example, maybe not the biggest team in the league, but they've just got athletes everywhere.
And their guards are big and physical, like, and you make it up for it in the backcourt. Yeah.
It's just been a prerequisite, and we thought foolishly that the Suns could get over it. But then again, it's like the point guard thing last year. It's like it's so much is wrong with the team that I'm not willing to look at like this one critical flaw and act like that is the majority reason why. It's like the majority reason why is because they don't run back and they don't close out to shooters. Like that's kind of the thing. All right, Cats talk.
How are you feeling?
So I'm conflicted. Surprisingly, I know, very shocking. Because I think this is a sick draw. I think it's fantastic, actually. Like I'm not really scared of I'm scared of other teams making Arizona play the way I don't want them to play. And I think it's just all up to Arizona not playing that way themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
So that
they just have
they're
to impose whatever they want. Yeah.
play an Arizona basketball game and you're going to make the Final Four. I'll say it. Like they can beat Duke. They were not even close to the same team um as Duke before. Like I think they can like I think Duke's a good matchup for them. I think they got lucky with Alabama being there too. Like Wisconsin, that was a again, Tanjay who's had a great year, had the game of his life and shot 19 free throws, 21 free throws in a home game. Like that's not happening in the tournament. They've got Akron in round one. They're a wild team because they started 7-5, so it's similar to Arizona. They're 21-1 since then, but they have zero resume games. Like even in that 7-5 start, non-conference, there's nothing there. Like you've looked at it too, nothing. Ninth in points per game, 6 assists per game, efficient, well balanced, put it all over the floor. No player on their roster is over 6'8". No
Yeah,
one.
man. Too
And
small.
and they only have 5 guys who are over 6'4" anyway. So like you're talking about like KJ Lewis is bigger than most of these dudes. Like Carter Bryant is a giant compared to these guys. Like Tobe Awaka is used to being the undersized 5, and he's actually not an undersized 5 in this game. So they should be able to completely dictate things physically. They should take 30 free throws in this game. They should have 20 offensive rebounds. But if Akron just starts hitting threes and then their offense falls apart, when the crowd gets loud, they're done. So I have no idea. I picked them to win. And then I picked them to lose against Oregon because I think Dana Altman's an excellent coach and he's gonna know already. He's coached against Tommy Lloyd enough already to know exactly what he has to do. He knows exactly like I'm gonna trap Caleb Love on everything, and it's just gonna be up to everyone else to do everything. But I like the draw. I think you put it really well on the site where it's like just when you think you're in with them, it's a great pull me in, just when they the whole Pacino thing, because they have the horrible starts of the year, they rip off conference schedule just blazing, and then they have like some awful defensive games, just terrible. And then you're like, what is this team? And then they make it to the conference final. They play pretty well against Houston. They got lucky with injuries, sure, against Texas Tech and Houston, but I just yeah, I have no idea, but I do have an idea.
They're too wild. I That's the thing. It's like their 5 best players I will put up against anyone in this country. Once you go beyond that, I'm a little worried, but it's just even the 5 best players, consistency, the coaching staff trusting them is not, they don't trust them for some reason. Like Carter Bryant shouldn't be playing 20 minutes. He should be playing the whole game. Like you've said that. And I will use the rest of this time to say, if you haven't seen Fran Fraschella's tweet on Caleb Love, basically like I had every reason to like try to not believe in this guy, but I kept an open mind. I talked to everyone I could when I watched the games. As Arizona fans don't like him, I get a sense like they just are like he's too erratic. His shooting
Yeah,
percent is
sorry to cut you off. Arizona fans are very like core basketball traits. Like I call it like you're a dad watching sports, you always say like the Mina Kimes joke of like we got a game all of a sudden, or it's like they're the ones who always yell out for travels 15 times a game. You know what I mean? Those types of fans. I love them, but like that's the type of fans there. So I immediately knew when Caleb like got here that they were not going to like him.
and like I've been there too. Like why is this guy taking 17 shots a game when he can't shoot 40%? That's fine, but you know why he's there? Because do you remember when Arizona had an Elite 8 team with a bunch of NBA level athletes against Wisconsin and they were in a clutch game down the stretch and nobody knew what to do with the basketball in terms of putting it in the bucket? Do you remember that? And it was just like, no, you take it. You take it. Nick Johnson, I don't dribble well enough to take it. That's why Caleb Love exists. So, and also, by the way, all of his missed shots are like actually within the flow of the offense recently. I thought he had a really good Big 12 tournament. So, like, plays defense is a plus there. Not the best defender ever, but he tries. He's there. Does create a lot for his teammates. If he becomes 3 levels scorer Caleb Love, I like that a lot. So that's my rant on him. Like, he is obviously a crazy X factor, but I get why Tommy Lloyd's riding with him, and the supporting cast I think is enough, but it's just, yeah, the worst defensive games in like the past decade coming up 3 times in the last like week, 2 weeks, I guess now is 3 weeks maybe, is not good.
I always hesitate to say this because we are only it's like whenever you can meet anyone in like real life, it's the same kind of thing. Like when we speak with athletes, they have a certain motivation to be presentable and be nice, you know? But even when you meet anyone in person or whatever, like at your work or whatever, there's a similar kind of thing where like they can seem nice, but you don't really know what type of like person they are. But when I talked to Caleb for like 6 or 7 minutes, whatever it was for the story that I wrote last year, I was like, oh, he's a great kid. Like I just came away with that expectation, and everything I hear about him is that he's great. Which you watch him on the basketball court and you think he would be a dick, but he's not. Like he just seems like, by all accounts, he seems like a great kid. And just like if you're listening to this still and you're into Cats talk and you're not a love guy, just watch him for the entire game. Don't watch anyone else. He is going to surprise you with how well he plays defensively and how hard he plays defensively. He's going to have his moments, like Fran mentioned, where he's taken a play or two off. It happens. But watch him offensively, because what'll happen a lot of the times is he's trying to he's trying to defer to his teammates like he's kept being told his entire life probably to do, and stop trying to take every shot. And then nothing will happen for 3 straight possessions. KJ Lewis will take 2 middies, miss both. Jaden Bradley won't get to the paint, like Trey Townsend contested 3. And then Caleb's like, okay, time to pull up with 16 on the shot clock because no one else can do anything. This is a better shot. Every time he gets the ball, Kevin, I'm like, shoot the ball. I say it out loud, shoot the ball. And I think Fran, you pick it up on the broadcast, he wants him to be more aggressive, and I agree, just because they don't really have any other kind of great options. So to your point on the supporting cast, Jaden Bradley, in the 4 games leading up to the tournament, he had 12, 18, 12, and 21, including a 7-assist game against ASU. And then in the tournament, he had 7, 10, and 14. I thought he was really good against Houston, but he's been incredibly inconsistent. Before that stretch at the end of the year, he had 4 against Houston, 8 against Baylor, and 8 against BYU. You know when the last time is Carter Bryant played 30 minutes this year?
I don't want to know.
Never. He has never played 30 minutes in a game. How is that? How is that possible? I don't understand. It's crazy. Trey Townsend's actually gotten better. He understands what his role is. He cannot play like he did at Oakland. He's got to play a different way with like the slashing and stuff, and he's doing a bit of a better job at it, but it's still like, I think he's primarily out there for defense still, and it's like Carter can guard like half the ball handlers in the NBA right now, and it's crazy. Vesar's awesome. He just needs to, he's probably their second best player, I would say. He has to play as much as possible. Unfortunately, in the tournament, 30, 30, and 33 for his minutes. He's been getting in the 30s pretty much consistently right now, which is good. And then KJ is the one where like I have no idea. He was fantastic in the tournament, 19, 5, and 11, but then he had 3 points against Kansas when he was 1 for 8 from the field. Like he'll just have these stretches where he had, I believe it was at the start of the conference play. Yeah, he had 21 against West Virginia. And I was like, okay, here we go again. And then he didn't reach 15 points in a game until February. Like it took him a month.
Dealing with some wrist injury apparently, but it's like his role anyway is he's like kind of what the Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro on the Suns, like lightning rod, energy guy, wins without the scoring. But yeah, it would be nice if he could shoot a little bit.
If they don't make it out of the first weekend, am I allowed to say he should be gone? Is that justified?
Yeah.
Okay. You can listen to Cats Talk from last year, and I said I was already there, so I need to see results.
I don't know if I'm there yet because I actually had fun watching this basketball team. It might be because the other basketball team I watch for work isn't super fun to watch, and I don't think they're that talented again, beyond a couple of really good players, but maybe my expectations should be higher.
That's what it is. It's like I expect us to be one of the 5 best programs in the country.
Right.
And like I'm not like like we did well in the Big 12 or it's no, we should have won the Big 12 this year. Like we should have dominated the Big 12. Like we should have proved that we're not just some West Coast team. It's like, no, we're one of the best programs in the country. Like that's the expectations I hold, and like the program that I grew up on and the program that I saw through the majority of my teens and like my collegiate years at the school. was, again, like those Miller teams, as much as like I hated the way he coached, like 4 losses, 5 losses, 4 losses, like they dominated. And actually like made progress in the tournament. Like they still failed to live up to their expectations. And like the places they should have got to, they never did. But this has been like a extreme example of it. This year's team probably an unfair one to do it, but you noted it in the story. They better hit on some recruits here in the next couple weeks, or next year is going to be a lot of portal, whole lot of portal.
It's been 10 years since they made an Elite Eight, and like as much as I'm giving Tommy a pass and you're not, it's like, yeah, if you want to be an elite team, like you're gonna lose this. Like you got to be winning 23 games and not 21 in Big 12 play if it's actually that tough of a conference, and you got to be recruiting well. They got 1 4-star and a guy named Bryce James next year, which that's a good sign, but also that's not actually in theory, I don't know. He's probably not going to be a super impact freshman. So yeah.
Cole Pete's the one, right? Because Gil's kid's going to USC or something, UCLA, one of those two.
Correct. I think USC for Gil's kid. Koa Pete is it. I don't know if they might be on one more McDonald's guy that I don't know if the update on that. But yeah, Koa Pete's the in-state. Make ASU feel bad about losing him because they're so hopeful on that, but we'll see on that one.
It does not appear that they're in on him. I just thought because I know that they were at one point. Oh, they're on his list still. That's good.
Yeah.
But he might be going to Houston or Duke, it looks like. What does this say?
Houston was the favorite, and I'm around too many ASU people, so I can't tell how legit the actual ASU chances are if Bobby Hurley doesn't have a contract after this year. But it doesn't matter if you're a one and done, I guess.
All right, buddy. That was a good amount of Cats talk. I'm proud of us. That was a nice little episode where we didn't have to talk about leadership or accountability. It's good for us. That's great.
All right.
We'll be back next week because there's only like 3 of these suckers left until the regular season is over. Perhaps the season is over. I don't know if you've looked at Dallas's schedule, but they've got some layups. So even if they don't get AD back, I think they're gonna win enough games. It has less to do with Dallas, I think, at this point. We'll see. All right, we'll be back next week, everyone. See you then.